and gentlemen, here we are, the start of an amazing journey. Week 1 in the books, its official stats are solidified for the first week. Which players are bombs? Which players are dum-dums? It rhymes and it's both negative. What about the positivity? There's going to be players you can actually target. You know, some of the best players to target actually might not have performed well in week 1. A good example from a dynasty perspective, from a keeper league perspective, Mason Taylor. Mason Taylor was dust. He got only 7 snaps on the Jets offense in week 1 against the Steelers. So everyone's, oh, this guy sucks. This guy had 1 catch. Mason Taylor is a bum. But while everyone goes and buys Harold Fannin, who had an 80% snap share, which obviously is great and exciting, listen, it's basic math. His price is up. Mason Taylor is down. You want to buy low, right? So we got buy, hold, sell today. I hope to do this every single week. We got a whole list. You boys in the Discord. If you're not in the Discord, make sure you go join that right now, completely free. And I asked you boys, list the players you want to hear for buy, hold, sell. I'll tell you the status. You know, do you want to target them? What type of league format you want to buy, hold, or sell them in? And pretty much the overall approach to these guys. Check out flockfantasy.com, free tool. I'm happy that Mason Dodds has used this. You guys should check it out too. Name number 1 is actually very interesting. It's Keon Coleman. Now, Keon Coleman in his career, you know, he's going into year 2. In year 1, it was definitely a year full of volatility. You know, what we're going to be doing in these videos is we're going to be breaking down the recent stats. Yeah, Keon Coleman had a couple, you know, decent games last year, but from a widespread sample last year, he was dust. He was not good. You can blame the injury if you want, but he was actually going around ADP of like 115 in drafts. Keon Coleman, surprisingly enough, I know a lot of people are going to say he is a sell high. You might be right. He had 11 targets, he had 8 receptions, he had 112 yards, and a touchdown. It was an amazing performance. He had 25 fantasy points in week 1. Now, if we go back to last year, we can see that is the most fantasy points Keon Coleman has ever had in a single game. Now, keep in mind, the Bills put 41 points on the Ravens' head. The Bills had a lot of possessions. All their possessions were touchdowns. They were firing on all cylinders. Now, another thing to note here that actually we're going to say affects Keon Coleman negatively is that while Keon Coleman had 11 targets, Josh Palmer also had 9 targets. Gabe Davis also is, recovering from the injury. They did sign Gabe Davis. Gabe Davis might have a role in the future. Dalton Kincaid, the ball was definitely spread around. I couldn't even find Dalton Kincaid. That's a funny one right there. Dalton Kincaid had 4 targets, all 4 receptions. But Keon Coleman having the most targets for this Bills offense is a positive sign. Now, you could definitely take the approach to sell high. Might not be a bad idea, especially if you're concerned with the, injury proneness. We saw his wrist injury last year that definitely affected him. But I think Keon Coleman, if I have him, I'm going to ride that wave. It might be a wave that crashes and burns, but Keon Coleman, I'm holding on to, which might surprise some people. You have Caleb Johnson up next. Now, Caleb Johnson got nothing. In fact, he got worse. He had negative 0.2 was his fantasy football finish. He had 1 carry for negative 2 yards, no receptions. All of the training camp buzz was negative around Caleb Johnson. Everything was negative. Now, surprisingly enough, Jaylen Warren was the lead back, which wasn't surprising, but Kenneth Gainwell was out there splitting a lot of the time with Jaylen Warren. Both of them had receiving roles. Kenneth Gainwell seems like the guy to own over Caleb in a redraft league. Now, Caleb Johnson should not be sold, executed, whatever you want to call it, just yet. You took this guy with an ADP of 60, 70, 80. You're kind of on the hook. Like, would I rather go on waivers and get JCM? I know JCM's not on waivers. You already missed your chance. But the answer is yes. Like, I would rather do that. Realistically, there's not many good running backs on waivers right now anyway. Nick Chubb, maybe Nick Chubb is out there on waivers. Again, it's highly improbable. So with the weak running back position on waivers this week, you might as well hold on to Caleb Johnson. Just keep in mind, the upside for the first 8 games of the year is very low. Can you be patient? Personally, I probably couldn't. I'd be trying to trade him at all costs. I know it's a bit of an overreaction, but this guy was not on the field at all. If you drafted him in best ball, you're probably cooked. We got Brian Thomas Jr. as the next name. Now, this is a very, very easy one. He's not, listen, what classifies the difference between a buy, hold, and a sell? A buy, you want to go trade for him. A hold, you want to hang on to him. And a sell, you want to get rid of him. Brian Thomas Jr. came out. He had 1 catch for 11 yards. You might be thinking to yourself, this guy is a bum. Now, he did have a touchdown on the ground, a little end around, and that rushing touchdown for BTJ saved his day. From a fantasy perspective, he had 9 points. I'm actually going to have Brian Thomas Jr. as a buy or a hold. No matter what, do not sell this guy low. He had 9 points, but he only had 7 targets. Don't worry at all about the fact that Travis Hunter was getting more targets. Travis Hunter had 6 catches, 33 yards. There's better days ahead for this Jaguars offense. In fact, this Jaguars team takes on a Cincinnati Bengals defense that is supposed to not be very good. So BTJ could very easily rebound in a big way in week number 2. So I would rather hold BTJ. If I have BTJ already, I'm holding him. I'm definitely not selling him after week 1. I'm holding him, and I'm going to try selling him. I wouldn't even sell him at all, but once he pops off in week 2 against a bad defense, then you would sell him. Or if you don't have him, see who's owning him. Like, is the person owning him, do they think that, he had 9 points and, that's his floor? Or are they aware that he only had 1 catch and maybe, just maybe, they'll sell him low to you? So that's the approach on BTJ. Nico Collins is another very interesting one. Nico Collins is a similar approach to BTJ. The problem is here, I don't really know how high I am. I wasn't very high on Nico Collins coming into the year anyway. Why? Look at the games. 14 games played in 2021. 10 in 2022, 15, which is good, and then 12 in 2024, 70% snap rate. This guy just isn't on the field enough. And the main thing we saw in week 1, the main takeaway for Nico that scares the heck out of me, CJ Stroud on the O-line was trash, and the Rams D-line was just honestly insane. But Nico Collins had 3 catches for 25 yards on only 5 targets. It was bad. It was a bad game altogether for Stroud, for the O-line. But that's not necessarily something that's like new. Like, go back to last year. In week number 16, what is that? I guess that's not terrible. He had 7 catches, 60 yards, not terrible. He had 3 catches, 5 catches. The last couple of weeks, 5 targets, 6 targets, 6 targets. The volume wasn't great in the back half of last year. So I'm actually a bit scared about Nico. I don't know if you already might have missed your opportunity to sell him. Honestly, I just wanted to draft him in the first place. You're probably going to want to hang on to him. And if you can buy him low, it is worth the risk that he stays healthy, because depending on the price, like if Nico Collins was drafted in the first round, if you can trade him, if you can trade a guy taken in the 3rd round in a redraft league for Nico Collins, maybe even late 2nd, it's probably something you want to do because you're trying to win the league. You don't want to play scared and, project injuries. Amarion Hampton is the next name. This is an easy one. In a redraft league, I am fine holding him. In a dynasty league, you're in a good spot no matter what. It's game 1 as a rookie. Now, he did get his stripes. He had the big mistake going into half. Cost the offense 3 points. Cost the team 3 points, I guess, because the other team scored. Amarion Hampton will be just fine. Now, Najee Harris might actually expand his role. Amarion Hampton and TreVeyon Henderson, they're both holds. I'm not going to buy them in redraft leagues. I'm not selling them in redraft leagues. I might have a little light bulb in the back of my head where if TreVeyon Henderson comes out next week and gets, he only gets 30% of the snaps again and he drops 30 points somehow with like touchdowns, then I might sell him, even though his role might expand. But I just had, you want to have that in the back of your head. Like Hampton, he looked good, but his role might, he looked all right, but his role might shrink as Najee ramps up. Then you have TreVeyon Henderson, who you guys might not have even asked about. I didn't even see the name. But TreVeyon Henderson, I am worried about the initial snaps. Now, he looked like the best back, but the Patriots, we all know they like to troll running back. So as soon as TreVeyon Henderson pops, it's either, I'm going to give him a 1-week leash. I want to see him drop 20 points. If he drops 20 points, I'm not going to sell him immediately. I'm going to see if his role increases the week after. You would assume it would, but you never know with the New England Patriots. We got David Njoku. This one's tough. Now, Njoku, and people are not going to like this one, is actually more of a buy than a hold than a sell. Now, I just typed in buy. The reason I like David Njoku is because everyone's going to be fading him. He actually, he didn't have the worst game of all time. He had 3 catches, 37 yards. He did have 6 targets. So that is 6.7 points. It's obviously a bad day. But if we look at what he did last year, like 10 targets, 13 targets, 17, 5, 9, 7. There's better days ahead. They played the Bengals defense wasn't necessarily, fire. They're actually bad. So I don't really have an excuse in that sense, but it's game 1 of the year. And he's got a good connection with Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco will not let David Njoku be second fiddle. I know that Harold Fenton Jr. had 6 catches on 9 targets for 70 yards. I get that. And Harold Fenton will have a role. But David Njoku, don't get it through your head. His snap rate still should be at least 65%. And he's a freak. This guy has his athletic profile coming into the league was very, very good, and he's been in the league for so long. And Njoku should rebound in a decent way. Of course, until Joe Flacco gets cut, and then he's screwed when Shedeur comes in. Terry McLaurin. People are asking, what should you do with Scary Terry? With Scary Terry, you don't change your approach. I was kind of fading him coming into the year. Terry McLaurin has kind of always been a bit volatile, a bit boom bust. Is he going to catch that deep touchdown pass? We can see, 12 points per game in 2023, 13. But now he had his quarterback in 2024 all the way up to 16 points per game almost. You still saw some volatility against Atlanta. He only had 1.5 fantasy points. Against Philly in Week 11 last year, he had 2. He started the year off last year with only 2 catches for 17 yards. This year, he starts off, it's the same thing. Listen. This year, he started off 2 catches for 27 yards and the same amount of targets as last year. Now, the following week, he obviously didn't do much better, but you can see he ramped it up and he started getting his groove. Now, that was obviously building rapport with Jaden Daniels. You would think they already had that. But don't forget, Debo is there. Debo actually looked more explosive than Terry McLaurin in this game. But also, don't forget, Terry McLaurin was holding in at training camp. He was injured or whatever. So don't let that be something that, Terry McLaurin might ramp back up. He might frustrate you the first couple of weeks. He should be just fine. Marvin Harrison Jr., this one's an easy one. He's going to be a hold for me. He dropped 19 fantasy points. He had only 6 targets, interestingly enough. But he had 5 catches for about 70 yards and a touchdown. Really, the touchdown saved his day. If he didn't have the tutty, you'd be looking at 6 targets and 12 fantasy points, and it might be a whole different story. So I don't want to overreact and say, oh, this guy's insane. Obviously, the prospect profile is very good, but really, he's just a hold in my eyes. So we have Zach Charbonnet up next. From a dynasty perspective, I feel like the jury's already out. You might have already missed. It's more of a hold. Zach Charbonnet, if you paid the price, I feel like it's a premium handcuff back. If Kenneth Walker's healthy, it's going to be, maybe it's an offense where they're both less relevant than you would like them to be. Obviously, you paid a higher price for Kenneth Walker. Now you're kind of toast. Like, if we talk about Kenneth Walker here, in Dynasty, I'd be selling Kenneth Walker for any round 4 redraft. In a Dynasty redraft, any round 4 player, I'd be looking to trade Kenneth Walker in that range. If you can get that deal, definitely do that. Zach Charbonnet, let's not forget, this guy was a high draft pick, and he's pretty young. So Kenneth Walker going into a contract year, Charbonnet might even expand his role as the season goes on. But how good did the Seahawks offense look? It was all right. It was really just all JSN. Bill Krosky merit is what you guys want to know about. And who doesn't want to know about this guy? What is this guy's... I typed in Bill. That's my bad. JCM. So Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt. What do you do with him? Now, honestly, the answer is he is a sell. I know people are not going to like that answer. He actually was better than Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler wasn't as involved as I thought he would be. JCM, listen, 10 carries, no receptions, 10 carries, 82 yards. Efficient, 80 yards, not bad. And the touchdown run. So he actually dropped 14.2 points in his first ever game. You had the Chris Rodriguez Jr. Healthy scratch. That was kind of interesting, unexpected there. JCM with 14 points. If you can trick somebody into buying this guy, do it. Yeah, sure, his role could develop as the season goes on. They still have Eckler. Eckler's going to be a pest. And I don't know, is JCM, does he have a receiving, or is there a potential for him to have PPR receiving upside? I just don't see him, man. I feel like it's a good time to cash out. He's definitely more a hold and sell. If you want to hold him and see what he does over the next 2 weeks, if he drops 14 points the next 2 weeks again, then you can probably increase the price of what you get. But he's more of a sell in my eyes. Emeka Egbuka, this is the same exact thing as Keon Coleman. Rookie, game 1. Emeka Egbuka comes out here. He has a heck of a day. He drops 2 touchdowns on the Atlanta Falcons' heads. 4 catches, 6 targets, 67 yards. So 4 catches and 67 yards, 10 points. But the 2 touchdowns makes this guy, his day was insane, right? There's better days ahead. His role is going to expand. Even when Godwin comes back in week 5, which is Godwin's target, Egbuka will be just fine. I'm going to have him as a hold. You can't buy him, and I also would not recommend selling him. Mike Evans, better days ahead. He's more of a hold than anything. He dropped like 10 fantasy points in week 1. You're not really going to get somebody selling low on him. This guy drinks from the fountain of youth, so it's too late. Devon Achane. Devon Achane had an interestingly low role in week 1. 7 carries. He averaged like 8 yards a run. Like, this guy was very effective. He only had 4 targets too, which from Tua Tagovailoa, that's pretty low. Because if we look at his career averages and what he did, throughout his career, it's going to be a bit skewed because when was Tua actually healthy? But you can see last year, 5 targets per game. I feel like Devon Achane, there's better days ahead. I'd be looking to potentially buy him, would be my advice. But the calf injury still worries me. Why? This is a plane that is going one way, down. The reports are that the owner's going to fire the GM, to fire the coach. Tyreek and Jalen Waddle are on the trade block. I mean, Tua is probably going to... what are they going to do with Tua if he plays bad again? It's a burning ship. And if Devon Achane, he complains about his calf again, why start him? I mean, they're going to tank. This is a tanking potential. Kyle Pitts, interestingly enough, Kyle Pitts, again, one of my more drafted players. I was high on Kyle Pitts coming into this year. I was saying, oh, go back to the mousetrap again. 8 targets, 7 receptions, 60 yards. A 13-point day in week 1. Not too shabby. If we look back at last year, I mean, he only had 3 better weeks from a points per game perspective. Now, I would have liked to see him a bit more involved in the red zone. Now, good news and bad news. So the bad news is that, don't forget, Darnell Mooney was out in week 1. The bad news also is that Darnell Mooney is back in week number 2. The good news is that Drake London's day-to-day with a shoulder. So Mooney might come back, and then London might go. Now, when they're both back, I expect Pitts to probably come back to like 5-6 targets a game. But Pitts, he's a solid hold. Maybe you want to buy him, but there's such a deep class at tight end that I really don't think it's too much of an issue. Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews is debatably droppable. People are saying you can maybe go ahead and even just drop him. I think that's a bit harsh. Now, we can see that last year, pretty consistent in the back half of the year, with Isaiah likely gone, and in a game where the Ravens dropped 40 points. Do we want to know what Mark Andrews did? He had, I want to say 0, but it wasn't 0. He had 1 catch on 1 target for 5 yards. Wasn't involved at all. Now, don't forget that Lamar Jackson was only forced to rush the ball. He was only forced to pass the ball 18 times. 18 pass attempts for Lamar definitely hindered Mark Andrews and what he could do, in week 1. So if they I don't know, man. You're grasping at straws because Isaiah Likely is going to come back. Likely he's on a contract year. There's honestly a good chance that Isaiah Likely outsnaps Mark Andrews once he's back and healthy. It might be time to get rid of Mark Andrews. I'd probably give him 1 more week. Depending on where you drafted him, I'd give him 1 more week. And if you have him, make sure you're adding Harold Fenton Jr. from waivers, man, because you need a tight end bad if you are stuck in Mark Andrews land. Now, the last couple names here, a bunch of waiver wire guys like Braylon Allen. He's probably still rosterable. He's droppable if there's someone better that you like. Calvin Austin, I know people are adding him from waivers. I'm not a big fan of Calvin Austin. Booty, Kayshon Booty is a favorite for the waiver wire. He honestly might be the top waiver wire ad. I'm not really impressed with this week 1 waiver wire class. My favorite week 1 waiver targets are Isaac Tesla, Alik Almanor, and Harold Fannin II. Those guys are the ones you should be targeting. Final name is Justin Herbert. Herbert had a heck of a day. If you're in a 4-point passing touchdown format, I think you can go ahead and try selling Justin Herbert. Like, if you could trade Herbert for Justin Fields in a 4-point format, you scammed him, right? So maybe Herbert and something else to go get Fields. It's worth it, man. In a 4-point format, go ahead and do that. You can use his bait from his week 1 stats. Obviously, he had several touchdown passes. If you're in a 6-point format, I might be inclined to ride the wave, man. The big Q downfield threat. Keenan Allen looked insane, and he's got Ladd as the safety blanket. This Chargers offense might be special this year. I know they're a run-first team, but that's not what we saw on Friday Night Football. That is the first ever episode of Buy, Hold, Sell. Hope you boys enjoyed. And again, join the Discord. You guys can get your names in for next week.